Hey, what's up, La Familia? You crazy football-loving nutters. This is Ray Hudson, and you are luxuriating in listening to the ICYMI podcast with the stupefyingly magnificent Jay and Alex. Two lads who are as electrifying as a hairdryer thrown into a hot tub. Stay tuned, because you know what it's going to be. It's going to be magisterial with an amplifier.
The cross goes, he's done it again. Taylor squares it for Victor Ulloa. It's one up. Ulloa and Taylor. Job done for Inter Miami. Led it in by Morte. What? 6. It's 2 for Miami. Damian Lowell doubles the lead. Some games you can just sense something wicked this way it comes.
I don't know how much more of the good juju and blessings we can receive from the soccer gods. They've been so generous to us over the past few weeks, and we just seem to be unable to deliver and dropping the ball all along the way. And we're gonna need just a little bit more love. We got 4 more games left. We're gonna need a little bit more love from the soccer gods. Give me at least 2 weeks of it, and let us make it all up.
That's all we need, man. 2 weeks of love from the soccer gods, and we could be in the playoffs.
I don't know how many more draws or losses to the necessary teams will occur. I'm getting nervous that our luck is running out, and time is ticking. The hunt for the playoffs is on, and I don't know if anyone's really confident. Like the whole bottom of the East vying for these last 2 spots is just some sad teams. It is kind of embarrassing to like a funny degree of just how poorly everyone's playing to fight so hard for those last 2 spots, probably to get knocked out in the first round, because we're going to have to go against not just us, but whoever wins is going to have to go against the top 2 teams, Cincinnati and Orlando. Caden, how are you feeling about this? Are you
not overly confident, if I can be honest. I mean, the last few games without Messi have been not from a fan standpoint, not a ton of fun to watch. There's not much real entertainment value there. It's a little bit frustrating, if anything. But from a player standpoint, I think it seems like everyone is underperforming to an extent, including the players that we typically would rely on. These, like, I'm talking Jake Callender, he led up some goals that you would typically expect him to easily save. The midfield has just been shredded by opponents. They look tired, and understandably so. A lot of games in a short time frame. Yeah, a little underwhelming. But to your point where you were saying the teams fighting for the last 2 playoff spots are just playing paltry soccer. I did see a tweet earlier that I thought was kind of interesting, that Nashville, the last team in the East to clinch a playoffs, or the most recent team to clinch a spot in the playoffs, I should say, if they're in the Western Conference, they'd only be a single point off of second place or third place. Either second or third place. I don't remember exactly what it was. So I don't know if that speaks to the strength of the Eastern Conference in depth, or if the West is weak. But yeah, I to that point, I agree. Yeah, the Red Bulls, the NYCFC, well, maybe not NYCFC. They've been pretty good lately, but DC United, Charlotte, they've pretty terrible lately. Chicago as well. So reasonably on paper, you'd think we'd be able to compete well with them, but we just haven't, and that's kind of where the issue lies lately.
Yeah, it's like the top of the East is just they're like miles apart from the bottom of the East, right? And we're talking 7 out of 9 teams have already clinched in the East, and then you go to the West. Really, one team, St. Louis, has clinched. Like everything else is still up for debate, from the second spot, which right now is Real Salt Lake, to the 11th spot. And we're talking about a difference of 8 points. That's utterly insane. Like how tight that whole division is compared to ours, where it's just you got everyone at the top and you got the children's table below them, and we're all fighting over for the last scraps of mac and cheese. And it's gonna be tough. And but Caden, to your point, it's like we're back. We are right back to the Neville Ball days. It is like, terrible. Yes, we all knew Messi was the catalyst for change, but I feel like everyone has stepped up around him, right? You know, surround him with people that are going to make runs for him, and then he's gone, and like no one's making these runs. It just seems very, very static. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead and rip through the intro. Welcome everyone to the ICYMI podcast. I am Jay Kington, joined by Mr. Branton Griffen and Caden, DeLisa. How are you boys doing tonight?
Good.
Great,
Can't
man.
complain.
Excellent.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Glad to have you, bud. Glad to have you. I appreciate the walk up like Monday. We're doing it. I was like, yes. Yes, we are.
That's right.
And we're going to drag Caden into this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and
No,
start.
no flash photography though.
Let's start off with this previous game, Saturday night. Another rain delay. Go figure. Love it. Oh man, love it. Nothing like being huddled up with all the homies under those little pop-up tent things. I don't even know what they're called. Canopies, maybe? Whatever they are. That's where you make the bonds. That's where the true friendships are formed. Using your buddies to shield you like you're a bunch of sheep out in a rainstorm in Ireland or something, or wherever.
If you guys were doing the canopies, you're doing it wrong. When I was at the SKC match, we all huddled under. You guys all have those big ass SUVs. You just pop the hood and you've got yourself a little cave.
That's where you're going. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So we all had
those guys aren't
we all
going
had
anywhere.
the SUVs, and then we popped the canopies because it was fine. It looked like the storm was going to go around us, and right before we went in, the skies just freaking opened up, man, and raincoats were being purchased and thrown on, and you know, I felt bad at one point. I was like, listen, I would rather be stuck in the stadium than outside, so I'm gonna close up my canopy, and you guys are kind of on your own.
Just dipped out. He looked like Marilyn Monroe with that little like vent shot, because my man was wearing a pink kilt, so he's got to keep that down from the wind. But yeah, you know, always love that. It's we're like, you know, we're good, and then right before the game, just a gray wall appears and delays it. It's that's part of the Inter Miami tradition right there. Let's just delay every game.
It's South Florida culture.
It seems pretty consistent anyway. Well, walking into the game, you know, there was a delay. I think the kickoff was like 8:31 or something like that. And about 8:15, we got some news from Inter Miami Podcast's own journalist and reporter extraordinaire, the man who breaks the news and the igniter of worlds. I'm talking about you, Caden. You dropped a tidbit that became probably one of the top debated sports subjects on Twitter for the next 48 hours. And go ahead and just reiterate the information you received about the most notable player in the league.
League, I think we're talking about world here.
World, that's fair. That's my bad.
But yeah, during the rain delay, from an unnamed source who will remain unnamed, I've had a plethora of people asking me who it is. It's not happening. A good journalist never reveals his sources. Anyways, I was told that Lionel Messi, behind the scenes, it's known that he suffered a 2-centimeter hamstring tear. You know, let me pull up my tweets. I'm not fudging the numbers here. We can cut this.
No, it's all good. I mean, I can reiterate for you, but while you're pulling
This
that
is
up,
authentic.
Yeah. I'm lazy. I'm not editing days. We've been so good lately, so the editing's been pretty easy outside of a few episodes. Well, while you're pulling that up, how does it feel to be the reporter who was the first one in the entire world to break the Messi coming to Inter Miami news, followed up by really the first reporter to break what you're about to reiterate?
Yeah, no, it felt good. Back in June, another unnamed source gave me Messi's contract information and subsequently Busquets' contract information. Well, before it was known, or at least confirmed, that either were coming to the club. By the point I had sent out those tweets, it was known Messi was either doing Barca, he was doing Inter Miami, or going to Saudi Arabia. We speculated he was coming to Miami. We got confirmation of the details. Put it out. Got a little bit of attention. That was cool, but not the level of attention that these tweets from Saturday got. Much to my surprise.
I think the attention levels were probably higher for the Messi announcement. I think the reception is maybe what you're referring
Oh
to.
yeah, I was in,
the
I was in the line of fires of the populations of several countries with this one. They were not happy people. France woke up, they got mad. Brazil woke up, they're mad. The Argentinians, they're the most mad. Yeah, a lot of a lot of deleted DMs that night. But anyways, the news. So I got a scoop and said a source indicated that same unnamed source, for those of you who lost it along the way, that Lionel Messi sustained a 2-centimeter hamstring tear, which was confirmed via MRI, likely shutting him down for the remainder of the MLS regular season. The injury was picked up during Argentina's World Cup qualifying match against Ecuador before being re-aggravated against Toronto. I sent out a second tweet following that to clarify. I don't have Twitter Premium. I'm limited by characters, so I can't put out the whole article on Twitter. But so one thing I'd like to clarify: Messi suffered a hamstring strain on international duties, which became a hamstring tear when aggravated during his appearance against Toronto. And if you remember, for those of you who may not have watched the Toronto match, he started the game, played 36, 37 minutes, and then requested to be subbed out, which he was, and he hasn't seen a minute of game action since. And our good friend IMCF Traveler followed up my tweet, kind of expanding on what a 2-centimeter hamstring tear might mean for Messi. And he described it as a 2-centimeter non-operative tear, which he said typically can be repaired with just rest, ice, NSAIDs, which I'm truthfully not 100% sure what that is, but we're rolling with it, and protected weightlifting within 4 to 6 weeks. And Traveler said this is why he's still, he being Messi, is likely still participating in light training, why he's present at the training grounds, but perhaps not, doing it in front of media. The team might be kind of putting it behind the scenes. Maybe I've heard reports, unconfirmed, from fellow Inter Miami reporters saying that he hasn't done any ball work. It's just light running, very light weightlifting, kind of reiterating what Traveler was saying there. And that being said, with that 4 to 6 week timeline, given the amount of time Messi has already spent on the sidelines, I wanted to then clarify that it is entirely possible that we see him in extremely limited minutes, maybe in the last game of the year, if the medical team does deem him far enough along that timeline. And that's not me walking back and saying he's either hurt or he's not. It's not Schrodinger's Messi here. He could potentially be far enough along that timeline where he could feasibly see minutes against Cincinnati. Very, very unlikely. I would speculate that it's almost impossible given the scope of the injury that's been described to me. But most likely, if he is seen on the field again in the regular season, it would be that last game against Charlotte for probably 20 to 30 minutes, if I had to guess. And that last bit of speculation, nothing confirmed, nothing concrete. Again, my own personal speculation. I did receive secondary confirmation from someone who also shared this report in private conversation. He kind of mentioned to me that a reporter that he deems reputable reached out to him and confirmed what I had tweeted out, and essentially said that the league is kind of keeping quiet about the scope of the injury. Yeah,
and I actually got tertiary confirmation on that as well from another source from down here in South Florida. NSAID, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. It's essentially like, ibuprofen, naproxen, just stuff that's like over-the-counter stuff for treating, inflammatory related, pain related, arthritis, stuff of that nature. So that's just pretty basic stuff there. But the timeline, would make sense here for a potential return towards the end of the season. The question is, how much are they going to want to risk it? Yourself, you've already seen the ticket prices for Chicago dump off, pretty hard, even though they just announced earlier today that was a sold out game. But, how much do you want to risk it? And then we'll kind of get into, once we do a little bit of coverage on the NYCFC match, back to our traditional Inter Miami podcast ways, talking about losses while trying to not be depressed about it. We can discuss the post game presser that I was there with at Tata, kind of go over his answer. But thing to note here as well is that the team did kind of release that this was a posterior soft tissue injury in Leo, and then the elaboration on that was it seemed to be some scar tissue that was aggravated, which I'm not a physio by any means, but that sounds like a separate issue. I don't know if this was compounded on top of that, if that was kind of distraction the entire time. We're not going to get the clarification we want here. Just kind of spoiler alert, right? Like Tata's not going to give that up. I don't think he's really privy to even giving that up. There is a tactical advantage to teams, I guess preparing for us as if we did have Messi. He's probably receiving words from front office, like, hey, we don't want you to discuss this, right? The MLS is being very coy. They're not discussing it. Apple doesn't want to discuss it. There are business implications and ramifications to Messi going down. We're talking about ticket sales, attendance, viewership for Apple TV. All these factors kind of come into this play where it seems that the ones who really, are on the bad end of this are the fans, are the people who are traveling or paying for flights. There was just some lady who flew over from China at this last game. A buddy of mine from Atlanta said four people he knew flew over from Iran, right? And so you got the flights, you got the hotels, the food, the tickets to that game, all just to not see Messi play. So it's going to be a tricky situation where we're probably not going to get anywhere near the answers we want. And this is just kind of, what it is. And unfortunately, we have to suffer, or people that bought higher price tickets are now going to be kicking themselves because the price has fallen off, by a third of what it was. Brandon, what do you see as the potential ramifications of this, given the fact, and, I'll quote Tata here from the press conference, is that, we couldn't find a way, we couldn't beat Orlando. We couldn't beat NYCFC. He's getting a little frustrated that the team isn't really playing with the same intensity they were when Messi was here. But what do you think the ramifications here are for the remainder of the season, as we are seemingly in an every game must-win scenario, 4 games left?
Yeah. I think this week's game against Chicago's a pretty bad team. We should be able to beat them. But I really struggle. Yeah, but I really struggle to see how we make the playoffs without Messi at this point. We thoroughly got embarrassed by Houston in the Open Cup final. Even though it was only 2-0, it probably should have been a lot more. New York City game should have been a higher score. There were several opportunities in the first half that they did not capitalize on and could have very easily. We could have gone into halftime down 3-0. Mm-hmm. So I don't see us making the playoffs. And if we're not going to make the playoffs, I wouldn't play Messi. The dude just finished a full European schedule with the World Cup in the middle of his season. No rest last season with friendlies and qualifiers to get ready for the International World Cup. So I'm okay if they shut him down. I mean, Tata kind of mentioned it before the Open Cup. Like, we were going for that. That was it. Mm-hmm. And if that was the performance that we put in on something that we're going all in for, playoffs ain't for us this year, man. And, it's hard to expect one player to come in halfway through the season, having already played a full season, and carry us to multiple titles, right?
And play 2 other tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was Andre Blake had a interview yesterday or the day before where he just said, like, the players are tired, man. Mm-hmm. Like, there's too many games in too short a time. Like, they've been playing like 2-3 games every 7 days for the last several weeks. And I think we're seeing, you kind of touched on it with the struggling teams in the East. Like, I think that has a big part to play in it. And then you take into account that we don't stop for international windows and all this nonsense. Like, the players are just tired. And at this point, like, if we don't win against Chicago, I say you shut them down. You shut Busquets down, and just play the guys that you're not sure about yet, and let them earn a way onto this roster, because most of their contracts are up at the end of the year. So, let these guys play for a job, and who knows, maybe that's what sparks a little bit of a late run. But, we just don't look good.
We don't.
No other way to put it.
If I can kind of add to what you were saying a minute or two ago, I saw or I heard I believe I was listening to Herculez Gomez's podcast, and he brought up that against Houston in the Cup final, they registered 18 shots on goal in the first half, with 10 of those. They registered 18 shots with 10 of them being on goal, which was a record for U.S. Open Cup final. It's not that we're playing poorly without Messi. We've regressed from even before when he was here. The whole first half of the season, the kind of rhetoric around the team was wait until Messi. They're going to bring in a big name. They're going to bring in several big names that will turn around. Well, we missed I guess two of them with Alba out as well. But they've regressed, and it's not even that it's the old team that's just regressing to the mean without Messi. We brought in three other young, talented players from South America, spending $10 million on one of them. Which is a lot for MLS. You don't spend $10 million on a player unless you expect him to immediately make an impact.
He was the record-breaking amount of money paid for a center back in Toto.
Yeah, exactly. And not to say he's been bad, but collectively the team has, and it's an issue. Yes, Messi and Alba are out, but Busquets is still in there. Campana is still in there. Kramaski, and I understand, like you were saying, we've had a really long run of games. They're going to be tired. I absolutely understand that. But I guess for a player like Busquets, it's like, what was he brought in for if he can't raise that level a little bit? We're worse off than we were before.
But I think the other thing you have to keep in mind too is we all expected like Messi was the Band-Aid. Like Messi made this all work. But if you look at the players, they're not playing in their best positions. Like Tata has been able to bring in a couple of people like Toto and Furious and Gomez and players that buy into his system. But most of these players were put together based off of Phil Neville's tactics. And I think that's why we're seeing a regression to Neville ball almost, because, we're kind of bunkering and just praying to God. Farias makes a deep run with Campana with him, and they could 1-2 it into the back of the net. But, we have to be realistic here and understand that just because we have a big name coach and the biggest star in the world who's not playing right now doesn't mean that it's a fix all for the rest of the team. And so, I would expect next year, like we said, a lot of the contracts are coming out. We'll be able to pull people out, but when I think last game, I think Toto had the game of his time with us, scoring
Absolutely.
the goal, and he had some great defensive plays, but outside of him, Noah Allen, I think was our best player on the field, kind of followed by Miller. Those two were two of the better players, and everybody else just didn't do anything.
I thought Ruiz shined as a right back.
That's true too.
I was really high.
He looked good.
He was my man of the match. But it's every single time I've ever been to, an open training where there's some. You can talk to the players and the coaches, or every post game conference. It's Tata keeps reiterating, their boys are tired. This is a brutal schedule. We're fatigued. We're losing players. We just lost Campana. I don't know how long Campana is going to be out. I don't expect him to play, certainly not against Chicago. I mean, it looked like he pulled a hammy as well. And bodies are just going to continue to drop. You've seen a drop-off in production from Kramashi, from Sergio. It's intense, and it's not going to get any easier considering next season we'll be playing in a total of four outside tournaments. We could legit see a mid-50s 50-game season, and if we go far the tournaments, I don't really know the math off the top of my head, but it could even get up to the 60 market games, and it's going to be tough to balance all that. Considering America and the MLS in general is really stupid about the international window breaks, it's going to be tough. And I don't see much changing from Saturday to Wednesday in a couple of days, or until this Saturday. They don't have enough time to recover, and we don't have enough bodies. And really what caught my eye is Tata seems to without Messi, want to go back to this 3-5-2 formation, where we can get potentially 5 playing at the back if we need them. But in the same breath, that's the same formation that Neville was really rolling with throughout the kind of latter part of his tenure. And if Neville couldn't make it work with these players, and I think Tata is a better coach than Neville, right? Slightly different tactics, and we do have some improved players, but without Messi, we're going right back to the same system that we've played and struggled in for quite a while now. So I just don't think anything drastic is going to change, and we're going to need not only luck from the soccer gods I was mentioning, like, there are some matchups where the teams right around us will be playing each other or playing teams that are better than them, and there's still a chance that we get blessed with some positive results outside of things that we can't control. But, I mean, we've got to win these games, and if we can't beat Chicago, who is struggling, even though we're struggling, I have no hope for us to take on Cincinnati unless they're like, hey, we're just going to give all of our starters rest until the playoffs, which be
they
adequate.
Could do.
They could, but they also could be like, no, you guys knocked us out of the Open Cup. We want a little bit of revenge, and it's going to be brutal. Then we finish up with Charlotte, which is, friendly as well. Like not a great team, but like at the same time, we haven't been a great team, and
they're fighting for their playoff lives as well.
And they're fighting for the playoff lives as well. Well, I mean, let's get into it. Like, there's really not too much positivity to spread. Go ahead, Caden.
I do question, you guys are talking about reverting back to Neville ball. Obviously, Tata has different tactics than Neville, but in practice, I feel like we're especially without Messi, we're kind of reverting. Let me rephrase. When Messi was in the lineup, it was, I think, his presence in the central midfield kind of took the gravity out of Neville ball, but he was still happening. It seemed like when Messi was active, when he was healthy, the kind of game plan was just get the ball to him at the top of the box and let him do what Messi does. The magic passes that we see in the great shots, like that's a result of Messi, not anything tactically. We look towards the Dallas game in the League's Cup. Yes, Messi was there, but we were still sending in a ton of crosses. It looked very similar to what Neville kind of put out himself, or tried to get the team, the system the team tried to get him to play in. And that's when I started to question what the severity of Messi's injury. I mentioned it in the Discord a couple of times. Once Messi kind of took a knock here and there, and I think it was most evident against the Nashville game, the first game back in the MLS season, or once the league resumed, he would get the ball at the top of the box, as I said, seemed to be the kind of MO of the attack. But he wouldn't ever progress forward. He just kind of meander around the top of the box and then try to look to lay it off on the wings. So it makes me question, are we really moving on from Neville ball, or is it just Messi's skill and talent covering up and making that more opaque? I don't know.
That's fair. And I think the injury was initially suffered in the Ecuador game or the Bolivia game, whichever one was the international break game, which they didn't even need to play Messi like that. Neither of those teams are good. Like they really didn't have to have Messi.
Yeah, I could have my dates wrong on that, but I remember shortly after the league resumed is when I noticed the kind of lack of direct progression for Messi.
And they always say like the way to get the best out of Messi is surround people around him that are going to run for him. And like when your team's this fatigued, the run starts to slow down. When Messi leaves, right, being essentially the maestro of the team, right? The one who can score, but really more importantly, you can pass the ball to him and he's not going to get flustered. He's going to continue, who's going to allow the play to continue. And you remove him and like no one's been able to really step up anywhere into that creative role, which we've seen for 3.5 years, right? Before he came. And now we really need someone to stand up, and we're just losing bodies. And it went from the most attractive football in the entire league to watch to back to one of the most miserable ways to spend 90 minutes in front of a television. I mean, the only thing that really makes it worth it is, I guess, being in, with the supporters groups and still feeling that energy. But it ain't going to be easy. And, we had the opportunity, like NYCFC has been hot team, then cold team, and hot team, and then cold team. And still a team I think we have yet to beat. It's either a loss or a draw, but I mean, even in a game where, again, we're back to dominating possession, which is great, but it's just like, it feels like meaningless possession. I keep saying this is just like Chelsea, 64.6, 65% possession essentially. And it's just all this prodding and poking and to the wings, cross it in, pray for the best. I feel like the numbers don't, the statistical numbers don't reflect it, because like it seems like the attacking sides or the thirds rather of attacking, right, left side, middle, right side, they're not that far off, but it just feels like, I don't know why, we're always going to the wings or all the way back to the back line and then back to the wings and then crossing it. And that's just not an effective way. We need to build through the middle, not just try and cross it and hope that Campana can get his gorgeous head on it. I mean, it's pitiful. And in a game where we don't have any shot on target until the 95th minute, our only shot on target was Toto's header. That's just absolutely pathetic. Like it blows my mind. I mean, 12 shots, 1 on target. And then to Brandon's point, it could have been 3-0 going into the half. The MVP for Inter Miami was just NYCFC's attack. They couldn't hit the goal. There were so many opportunities where they had good shots and they would send it wide or over. And it's just incredibly frustrating. I mean, it's almost double the passes and control of the game. A lot of yellow cards from us, right? 6, but I mean, a center back going for a header cannot be your only shot on target. That's not how you win games. No. You might win a game, but that's not a viable strategy to put yourself in a position to clinch the playoffs. And
this is again something that I'm kind of questioning whether Messi's skill just kind of covered up. Because you think back to the Cruz Azul game, you think back to the LA game, it's pretty similar. You know, that could have been both those games. We could have been down 3-4 goals, but we weren't. You know, we got lucky, and then on the offensive side of the ball, Messi was able to create. He's not there to do that anymore. So I think it just shows how poor the team has been without him.
I agree.
And if you look at like to Jay's point, like if you look at like how the team is set up and how they play, like there's nobody in the middle of the field. Like Kramashi is almost split out, like kind of not fully wide, but he's halfway wide. You got Allen and Ruiz shooting up the wings, or Yedlin shooting up the wings, and like you're just trying to go and cross the ball with Campana, and it's just not working. And I don't know if, you know, part of me is thinking maybe Tata is saying, all right, like most of these players were Phil's players, like let me not drastically change the tactics mid-season because we don't have time to fully implement what I want to do, so let's try this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or, you know, and that's probably what it is. I don't think we're actually seeing 100% of Tata's tactics. But when Messi's in there, Messi just moves around. Messi is fluid. Messi's going to see where there's lanes, and he's going to move in there. He's going to create space. He's going to drag defenders. Like, that's what he's going to do. And when you have the best player on the planet, you could play everybody in the back except for him, and we're going to find a way to look competitive. But, you know, without him, yeah, the team looks lost. And you know, I made the comment, I was talking in the parking lot after the game, like, I felt like when Campana would get the ball in the box, he almost seemed surprised that he got it. Mm-hmm. And, like, he'd overthink it and over-dribble it and didn't end up getting a shot off. But, you know, I just felt like it was just like he was just expecting crosses, not passes on the ground. And it was just
he wasn't really making – he wasn't, like, really making a lot of runs, right?
No.
You know,
he was leaving those for Farias.
At least Josef came in and started making runs, but like it was glaring. Like he wasn't finding the space. Just the positioning and awareness seemed off. And, you know, I'm sure he's tired as well. I mean, they're really, you know, outside of the possession and, yeah, showing off how many times you can pass. But, like, that doesn't matter if you don't win games. And then to add insult to injury, you know, like, we've seen this team come back so many times in the dying embers of a game, and then, you know, we draw it up and we have an opportunity to win it, and, you know, Ruiz just kisses the crossbar, which you know, there was a line there for us to go out and get the 3 points and pull off a miracle win. Really all the passing was just along the back line into Dixon or Sergio. I mean, you know, shout out Sergio had a really high, you know, 93% passing accuracy, but, you know, the most chances created on the team are Noah Allen. You know, your left back is creating the most chances on the team. Like, that's wild. And then Ben Hyde too, you know, and then the 3 other players that have won. There just wasn't really a lot going on. It seemed like a team playing out there. Like, okay, let's go play fundamentals, but we don't really have a real plan of attack.
It felt like a pickup game, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's guys who really haven't played together that just went out there and they're like, yeah, let's just rocket it in there. And
Oh, all right.
I
Anyways.
think I think it's overshadowed by Messi being out too, but the stretch of games is really showing how skillful Alba has been progressing the ball forward out of the defensive third.
Oh
We
yeah.
struggled with that a lot without him.
I mean, you need
But
that,
see,
right?
I wouldn't.
You need like
But
we
I
had
wouldn't
Messi.
say we struggle with it though.
But we had Barcelona players that have played together for years at every level
Yeah.
of the team.
But I think Noah Allen has stepped in Alba's like absence and had probably three best games of his time with us right in a row.
yeah, Noah's been playing great. You know, it's
Like Alba is a next level, but you know, I don't think that missing Alba is the reason we're here.
no, it's
saying that I
the
wasn't-
midfield, which is the lack of creation or lack of runs or trying to get open.
I like
or alleviate
Arroyo.
pressure.
Arroyo's a good dude. Like he's come in, he's been a servant to the club, but like he should not be starting games for Inter Miami. Like we need somebody of higher quality going forward, and you know that'll come next season. But you know, Cramashi had a bad game, and you know the Open Cup final he wasn't great, but you know he's young. But I just feel like with Mota, if Mota was back in there, if Gregory was back, I think we'd probably look a little more solid in the midfield.
Yeah, Gregory can get back as soon as he wants because man, we could certainly use him. But you know, I just Dixon is great if we're playing, you know, a traditional like 4-2-3-1, or he's in a CDM role with Busquets. But when out of the, you know, quote unquote 5 in the midfield, right, with 2 being kind of, you know, wing backs really, you know, David Ruiz and Noah Allen, like Cramashi is the only one with some real attacking capabilities, and it's just not the lineup we need. Now, again, you know, Stefanelli didn't start. Robbie Taylor didn't start. And maybe there's a strategy in resting these guys for games maybe Tata deemed, you know, more winnable or worthy of a higher focus, I guess, or resting some of the players. But look, it's going to get intense. I mean, we've got a game on, you know, Wednesday, which is 2 days away from now, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday decision day. And, you know, back-to-back games against Charlotte. I really don't want to cover this anymore.
No.
I wish there was positivity, but let's just get into the kind of post-game press conference. And I wanted to ask about it, right, Caden? I mean, you're part of the pod squad. I was like, all right, I got to follow up on our boy's question. Didn't get, and of course, first, you know, question goes to Michelle, and she asked right about it. And I saw this kind of misreported. It's strange because I think I was literally the only person in that post-game presser that did not speak Spanish. And so I was listening to like the live translations they have, but it's not really, obviously it's not coming as clear over as just, I guess, a direct Spanish communication would come. So, you know, it was a little difficult to understand, but when asked about it, the report, you know, like his first thing, the first thing he said was like, you know, how about this? What if that information is wrong? What happens to that reporter then? And I'm like,
yeah, it's an immediate deflection. It's a political move.
Yeah, but exactly. But it's like nothing's gonna happen to Caden. No one touches my Caden. I'll murder you. You know, like,
Hell
you know, and they're like, "Who's the reporter?" And like, I literally wanted to raise my hand. You know,
let him call me a fraud by name.
Yeah. It was just, it was dancing around, and then, you know, without even confirming the injury of the tear, like there was no confirmation around that. Just like, what if the report was wrong? What happens to the reporter who released that? You know, I'm going to say what I've said, which is we're evaluating, you know, game by game. He is, you know, off training by himself separately. I also received reports that like he really can't do much past like a jog, right? And it's going to be something to evaluate, and this is going to be probably dominated. This will dominate the media cycle around the team with local media, and you know, all tons of new media outlets that popped up, you know, from South America that I guess got, you know, apartments up here and now are covering the team. And that's just going to be the news cycle. Everything's going to probably revolve around this for the rest of the season. When is Messi coming back? Can we hopefully get him back for maybe, I wouldn't even risk it against Cincinnati, honestly. Like Charlotte's the one that, you know, if we could go back-to-back wins on, that's the one I'd risk it for. But honestly, like, don't push it, right? Give them the full offseason to recover, because Like the off season in the MLS really isn't that long. You know,
It's a few months at most.
Well,
you're probably
it's
off
the
for like,
longest off season in professional soccer.
is
The
it?
Premier League's only off like 2.5 months. And
Yeah, I guess
stuff
you're right.
like
And then they
that.
do exhibition
And
tours
MLS
too.
is off like 3.5 months.
But how much of that is actually off, right? So how much of that is you're not reporting to the facility, you're not having training duties, and you truly get off like probably a month, and then you got to start getting back in game shape. Training camp opens up, preseason, all that stuff. So the question really becomes: do you want to risk, the best player, right? Do you want to, we push into let's say hypothetically we push in, play him against Charlotte. Let's say he injures himself, like we make the playoffs, but he injures himself at the end of the Charlotte game, and now he's out of the playoffs. Like, is this team going to go very far in the playoffs? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
So save it for next season because you're about to have a brutal schedule with the regular season.
Yeah, we could play the most games of any MLS team in the history of the league next year.
The Open Cup, Leagues Cup, CCC, and then they're doing the Inter Copa America, which is a shorter term, like I think probably like it's 4 teams. So I mean, I don't know if they're going to do
and then
aggregates
there's
or
rumors
whatever.
that we're being invited to
the Libertadores.
Libertadores, yeah.
And so I mean, it's brutal.
I do want to add this to what you were saying about Tata during the press conference, though. Like, as you mentioned, he didn't confirm or deny. He kind of left
what's the most glaring.
Plausible deniability.
Yes,
and no one has denied it to this point. It's just we'll wait and see. I think I could be misquoting. Don't take this as
you're
as
paraphrasing, but it's accurate.
Yeah, I think I remember Tata saying something like, "Time will tell if that report is correct."
Yeah, he said time will tell if that report is correct or if I'm correct.
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
And if you kind of go back in the kind of entire time frame or chronology of Messi's injury, it started off, he's fatigued. We're giving him a day or two. We're giving him a match or two to rest. He's just on international duty, high elevation, blah, blah, blah. And then it turned into, okay, he's got a little bit of scar tissue that re-aggravated, just a game or two. And then it turned into a game or two for that. And now we're at this point. And I was doing a little bit more background digging on this, and there were games earlier this year in March, that Messi missed with PSG, like as a result of a hamstring injury. So it's not like he's got it. Again, speculation. He probably doesn't have 100% strength hamstring to begin with. It's entirely possible he got a slight tweak, a slight tear.
Someone said that he might have been carrying this injury when he came over. But
absolutely.
Like to your point, the silence is deafening, right? Like to those answers or that specifically to that timeline of events, right? Yeah, he's fatigued. It was high elevation. It's a posterior scar tissue reaggravation to now the newest report, which, I don't know why anyone would doubt you at this point, considering you broke the Messi news. But like, as they would say in Kentucky, that dog won't hunt. Like that is not, none of that really makes sense. And when the MLS won't comment on it, when the team won't comment on it, and certainly Apple's not going to comment on it and
we've both had secondary confirmations of this happening, and that they're deliberately keeping quiet about this.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, understandably so. But I mean, we've gotten several sources and several lines of information saying the same exact thing.
So when does I guess the chart, right? Where is the point of intersection of business versus public image? Because we're seeing a lot of people, not Inter Miami fans, not the Leo Messi fans that love him and follow him everywhere, but I'm seeing a lot of comments from more casuals or fans of other teams being like, this is like a little bit shady. What not only Interzoom, but like really MLS as a whole. There's a call for much more transparency or rules to be put in place, because right now there are no rules, so teams can really just handle it however they want. But at what point does the money, there's got to be like a bisecting point there where you're going to start to get concerned about your image in the nation or world's eyes, and I don't know. I'm not sure where that comes.
I can say that
it is Miami.
Domestically, I mean, Miami's never been a well-liked team. I mean, you go back to the sanctions, you go back to the awarding of the franchise. There's never a popular kind of,
fair.
No one viewed it as positive other than the fans of the team. Miami was more or less formed, and I've said this before, as a vessel to bring big names to MLS. I think we can all kind of agree with that, whether directly or indirectly, that's the purpose of the team. So these, you look at the MLS Reddit, you look at Twitter. These teams never liked Miami to begin with. A lot of people make fun of them playing for Lauderdale. They make fun of them being a bad team. There's a lot of people kind of present them as a foil to Nashville, who's largely been successful to this point. We entered the league at the same time. One franchise has been great up until now, and Miami hasn't. So I don't know that Miami was a real well-liked team to begin with. And another sentiment that I've been kind of seeing online is that people are just fatigued by the Messi news. If it's not their team, obviously we like seeing it. It's our team. It's we help cover it. But if you're a Portland fan, if you're a Columbus fan, and the MLSsoccer.com site is 90% Messi content, it's understandable. They want fair, balanced news coverage, and it's not happening. It's just super hyper focused on Messi.
And when you're charging people several hundreds of dollars for tickets, and they're paying that only to find out he's not playing, like, not only are they going to be upset, rightfully so, but like you're financially putting them in a bad position. And in a time and age where you turn on any news channel and they're going to be talking about inflation or the rise in cost of living, and also considering Miami is the most expensive place to live in the nation. Like, you're putting people in hard situations.
Absolutely. I think there is something to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, so like to piggyback on you guys' point, it's like, we can't even get an update on Robbie Robinson's hamstring. Like, I think this just brings up a deeper problem within MLS, and it's a lack of transparency. Like in the NFL, like when a team releases their game day roster, they have to release the injury report. Mm-hmm. MLS doesn't have to do that, and they don't do that. And if I was Baptist Health, I'd be really pissed that I'm paying to advertise for this medical report, and it comes out like twice a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Or even with NFL teams, they'll give you updates throughout the practices as well. I mean, I think most of us play fantasy football and knows how, the doubtful, questionable out tags work, right? And, so-and-so needs to log a full practice before he can really be considered. And, yeah, it's certainly frustrating.
But, we get like 1 week, we get a Baptist Health, injury report. Oh, Gene Malta is out for 3 weeks. And then we don't hear anything about him again until, like, I don't think we've had one since he got injured. So, I think it's just a bigger problem within MLS, and hopefully they address it. I think, I think if there's enough pressure, it could be something they change. But, at the end of the day, I don't think MLS has a whole lot of motivation to do that because they're locked into this Apple TV deal. Like, they've got their TV money. They've got their corporate sponsorships, and people are going to say, oh, I don't care if they're being transparent or not. They've got Messi. So we'll sign an agreement with them, and we'll sign a sponsorship. So, as much as I want it to change, I'd be shocked if it ever did.
So how does this compare to European injury reports? I'm not going to pretend like I parse through, Sevilla's injury report or Heidenheim's injury report. How do other leagues do it?
There's certainly there some leagues.
They're pretty transparent.
Have, rules in place where you a lot of this stuff gets disclosed. And just to add insult to injury here, which I think we all kind of saw come. We all expected this right towards the end of the season. There's another window of FIFA World Cup qualifying matches going off. Diego Gomez and Josef Martinez were called up, and
they can take Gomez. He's been garbage.
Yeah, but there will probably be, another player or two that gets called up. I don't think Messi's going to go
Campana could get called up
for the
no strikers.
I don't think they're going to play. I don't think they're going to call up Campana. He's been kind of stagnant.
Don't turn into Mike.
Don't
do it.
I don't know, but I mean, look, these games we're talking about, they're coming up in 10 days. So Yosa will be playing October 12th and October 17th. So essentially, we're not going to be having Josef Martinez for that first Charlotte game. He'll probably come back if he can. He'll probably get back here and just have a few days of rest before the decision day match against Charlotte. But same thing with Gomez. Like, we're going to be without some bodies that we need considering the weight of this season, and it's not going to get any easier. And we're going up against Chicago, which has your boy on it, Brandon, Mr. Jordan Shaqiri.
Shaqiri.
Also Gutierrez coming out. And they've got ballers that are creating assists. You got the perennial eternal flame in Kai Kamara, who's probably not going to quit until he's the league's leading scorer, and he's just creeping up that list. Haile Selassie, Air Bears, Kasper Shabelko. They have players that can score goals. This is going to be a game, I think, of will. This will probably be a battle of attrition in the midfield, but I think it's going to be who can will themselves into the playoffs, right? And that's what we're looking at. And the games that are coming up this Wednesday, October 4th, and Saturday, I mean, we'll know where we stand, I think, by the end of this. I don't know how much longer this is really gonna drag on, right? Right now, the only two spots that haven't been claimed are the 8th and the 9th that have not been, secured for playoffs, and that's NYCFC and Montreal right now. NYCFC is 38 points, Montreal is 37. Then you've got DC with 37, Chicago with 37, New York with 34, and we're at 33. Below us is Charlotte with 33. We don't need to talk about Toronto. They've already been eliminated. So you've got all these teams within 4 points of each other. That's 5 separate teams that
we have 2 games in hand, right?
Yeah. Well, sorry, 5 teams below the playoff line. So if you look at it, you've got 7 teams from the 8th spot down to the 14th spot that are separated by 5 points. So this is literally anyone could win this thing. Destiny seems to be in most of the team's hands. Certainly it's in Chicago's hands. It's a must win. And then you look at some of the other games going on Wednesday. Charlotte's playing Toronto. Toronto's been absolutely horrible this season. We need Toronto to lose. We need Charlotte to lose to Toronto. You've got New York playing Cincinnati on Wednesday. Is Cincinnati going to rest their players for the playoffs and give them an easy roster to play against? Given New York at 3 points, that would be absolutely devastating. Houston against Montreal, that'll be an interesting one. Montreal has been hot or cold as well. Austin versus DC. Then we've got Chicago. It's going to get intense here. Then you look towards this weekend on Saturday. You've got NYCFC versus DC. We're playing Cincinnati. Portland's going against Montreal, which I'm hoping they'll win, and then New York against Toronto again. So Toronto's not really going to be doing us any favors, and they're playing teams that we really need to either lose or draw. And then Chicago and Charlotte pray for a draw, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, this is just there's so many
crazy run in.
Yeah, it's a multiverse of madness. There's so many different routes that all these teams can go to make the playoffs, and here we are, down bodies, no Messi, no Campana, seeing who's going to step up and. I just hope we get some sort of better cohesion, better effort, something more enjoyable for the fans to see this season out. Like, we can take the League's Cup and take that with solace, I guess. But we're all wanting to make the playoffs. And again, we have no idea what's going on with Messi. There's so much uncertainty here. It's a little stressful. But
let's not forget, Chicago's a team that Miami has not historically performed well against.
Yeah,
we lost them earlier this season. We lost them last season. I think we've lost them every season we played them. Yeah. And in ugly games. I don't think they've performed well in any single game. And you can say that about a lot of teams with Miami, but I think it applies almost most to Chicago.
What would really help us is if we had like this real handsome, like debonair reporter to show up for the Chicago game.
Yeah.
And call Tata a fraud.
Yeah, get it. Say it to my face.
Say it to his face.
Let me expand on that because he is a fraud. He's known to be a fraud. I've said it in the Discord. I've talked about it. When he was in charge of Mexico. This wasn't that long ago. It's only about 8 months ago. He was putting together the roster. The federation at least was starting to put together the roster for Mexico's World Cup roster. Tecatito Corona, one of their mainstays, was hurt. What did he tell the media? We're evaluating him. We're looking at him day by day. Sound familiar? Corona didn't go to the World Cup, by the way, which started in November. When do you think he saw the field again? 4 months ago for Sevilla. That guy was pretty injured, right? Tata's a known fraud when it comes to stuff like this.
That's the
he'll tell you he's a tactician, but there's been a lot of people.
Yeah, you can argue the
that have brought up these.
This and that,
there have been some people that have brought up instances like that I've seen, on Twitter. Like this is par for the course for Tata.
It reminds me of when Phil used to be like, "Oh yeah, just a knock."
Yeah,
and then it's a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
It's that NHL upper body injury, and the guy retires because of injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, either way, oh man,
I digress.
What a finish to the season is about to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be heart attack herons all the way as we finish this out.
It wouldn't be Miami any other way.
Would not be Miami any other way. I don't really, unless I missed anything, can't think of any other news. Do you guys have anything you wanted to say?
No. Shout out MLSsoccer.com. Shout out Marco.com. Shout out
It's all MSN.
who else? MSN for including my tweet, my name in their articles. Yahoo Sports, screw you for calling it dubious. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
If you're on the Twitter sphere, repost. Don't copy and paste and try and make it your own and then give credit at the bottom. Give our boy Caden credit for the work he puts in. Be respectful.
And on that note, give Inter Miami Podcast credit for the work they put in. That's Inter Miami Podcast on Twitter.
No, Inter MIA on Twitter. We're not going to discuss.
CF.
We're not going to discuss.
CF, not FC.
Oh, yeah. Inter MIA Podcast. Having some issues with Instagram. Work through it. I'll be on BVC Radio tomorrow, 9 a.m. recording some show with them. So check that out. That should be fun. The topics they sent over weren't really about the injury, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Outside of that, man, I appreciate you boys making time. We will be on. We got Trav Chats on Thursday. Everyone should be tuning into that. We had an amazing discussion this past Thursday on the season ticket holder prices, the renewals. We didn't want to rehash that. It was a 2-hour-long episode. Really, really good, really entertaining, a lot of insight in there. So that is posted on our podcast channels. You can go pull that up the same way you'd pull this episode up. Outside of that, follow us on Twitter at InterMIA Podcast. We will be back. The show proper, I guess, will be back next week to cover these next 2 games that are coming up, and then we'll have our end of regular season show the following Monday. So let's see how this plays out. Been a hell of a season, ups and downs, wild news, good time as always with the Pod Squad. So as we like to end every single episode, vamos Miami.
Vamos Miami.
Vamos Miami.